and 50s. Didn't have a problem, and that morphed into soul music in the 1960s, and then carried on, of course, into hip hop later. So you've got these sort of parallel streams all the time, which is interesting.
Definitely. Now, some of those guys are on tour, right, from the Byrds?
That's right. Roger McGinn. Now, Roger McGinn was the only, he was one of the founders of the Byrds, and he's the only sort of constant member throughout the lifetime of the Byrds. His name was Jim McGuinn, and if you look at the early albums, he's credited as Jim. And what happened was he met a mystic in Thailand, I think it was, who said that he would have a good life and lots of luck if he changed his name to Roger.
Jim's a bad name.
It certainly did him no harm changing his name to Roger. And he's on tour, actually. 14th of March to the 5th of May. You can see him across some gigs in America. And Chris Hillman, one of the other stalwarts from the early Byrds, he's in America. He's not actually on tour. On the 15th of February, he plays a benefit for the victims of the Thomas Fire in Santa Barbara, California.
Yeah, that's coming up.
Yeah. I dare say he'll do some more stuff as well, but that's the only date I can actually find in the diary. And the other band I really like from that era as well is the Young Rascals. They changed their name. They originally called themselves the Rascals, but changed their name to the Young Rascals on the advice of the record company, because there was a band called the Harmonica Rascals, and they were afraid they might get sued if they just called themselves the Rascals. So that's why they started off as the Rascals, became the Young Rascals, and then about 1968 they decided to drop the Young and just became the Rascals again.
Because they were popular enough, there was going to be no problems probably by then.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think the Harmonica Rascals have probably long since left the scene. But Felix Cavalier's Rascals are on tour in America for the first half of the year, from now, 26th January through 22nd of June. Although there aren't a lot of specific dates between that span. My guess is just keep checking the website, and more dates will be added, as we talked about earlier.
And you get all this information, or a good portion minus the tour information, from your book, Rock and Roll Unraveled, right?
That's right. Virtually all of this information is in the book. So the stories behind most of these things, nearly all of them really, are actually in the book, as you're saying. And there's a lot of information on the website as well about the book and about different aspects of rock and roll.
Well, why don't you give them your other social media while you're at it?
Yeah, that's great. Very active on Twitter, which is at RNR Unravelled, and Facebook, which is Rock and Roll Unravelled. And I try and put stuff on most days.
No, you're pretty active on both those sites, and you get a lot of what happened today in history, which is really great for somebody who's a connoisseur of old rock and roll. Well, Derek, thank you again. I'm glad to have you back for another year of Rock and Roll Unraveled right here on the John LeBang Show.
No, my pleasure. I really enjoyed talking to you, John.
Being in the business, a very tough business that I am in, and especially at the level that I'm currently at, which is not the level of superstardom. I'm not a big-time radio guy, and there's a lot of my, colleagues that are in the same boat as myself. And we struggle, and we try to get people to listen, and some of us are a little bit more successful than others. And, it's a tough business, as I was saying. And it can take its toll on you, and the strong ones, the ones who have thick skins, because you can't do this radio thing and not have a thick skin. If you are soft skin, if you can't handle it, if you're emotional, then you're probably not in the right business, and you probably should retire out of this business if you're doing it, because it takes years to get listeners. You're not going to just gain them in the first week or two or three, and you're not just going to be here a couple years and expect to have millions of listeners listening to you to fill your ego. And everybody in radio has some level of ego. And so, because you have to have some kind of ego to even do this type of thing. Because you throw yourself out to the world each week, each day, depending on how often you do it. And the strong ones are going to be able to survive through the rough times, and you're going to also be able to, withstand some of the pressures of not having listeners for a little while. Nobody's showing up this week. Nobody's showing up that week. Because it's hard to bring people in all the time. But the people who want to be in this business just because they want to be famous, just because they want to be popular, they want some kind of ego boost from everybody else, and they're not getting it because hundreds of reasons. Could be that nobody's listening to the stations they're on. Could be that they're not very good. I mean, in this business, not only do you have to have a tough skin, but you've got to be original. You can't go out there and have some kind of cookie cutter program and expect to get ahead. And especially in this contemporary age where every Jack, Jill, Jan, Marco, George, Bob has a radio program, has a podcast, does something, does Facebook Live. They've made it so easy to do it. But that doesn't mean all these people that are doing it are very good. Again, this goes back to what I was saying in the first hour. I get lumped into the alternative media, so the wackos who get highlighted in the alternative media taint me. Well, in this other side of the coin of internet radio, you've got the ones that aren't very good at what they do, and then you've got the ones that are really professional and give you a professional product each and every week. And a lot of times the ones that aren't very good are going to steal and borrow and take from the ones that are good at this. But the ones that are good are usually continually give you original stuff, and you can tell it's their stuff. They haven't borrowed it. They haven't taken it. So the idea that, somebody that not only doesn't have a lot of talent versus not having a thick skin can make it in this business, you're not going to get that far. And if you're only in this to gain popularity and to be popular, you're in this for the wrong reasons. I just want to earn a living at it. If I can bring in 30 or 40,000 a year, like somebody does in an auto plant, like somebody does, in the paint industry or in the carpentry industry or in the construction industry, then I'm happy with that. Other people, and I've seen it recently, they have, they're prima donnas, they're drama queens, and they go out there, and then when they're not doing well, they throw a tantrum. When they see other people doing well and they're not there with them, they throw a tantrum. I've dealt with this firsthand. And I've watched a person, in general, who has been a little bit negative on me and who has really taken offense to my tiny little success. I'm a nobody in the radio industry. Yet this person totally had a fit when I got picked up by Bubba Army Radio, which is, it's an honor to be on that station. The same person has just gotten out of whack, but I think from that person's perspective, they're not popular enough, and it's not worth the time, and it's not worth the effort. And I sit back and I'm like, you don't belong in this business, bro. If that's what you're going for, you don't belong here. Because you're not going to make a fortune. You're not going to make the money. The odds are against you, is what I'm saying. The odds are against you in this business to make any kind of huge amounts of money. One, because anybody can do this now. Anybody can have a decent quality because of the equipment and the software available to everybody. So now, because everybody can sound good, you're down to raw talent. That's it. And a lot of these people don't have it. Boy, and I can't believe some of the people that will turn on their Facebook Live when they're doing a show, and all they do is spin music, by the way, and they're bouncing and they're dancing and they're the ugliest thing. Nobody's watching them, by the way. And am I a cut above the rest? I'm not saying that. I work very hard. I know I put in 3 to 4 times the effort of most of my colleagues in this business. That's not to put them down, but I know how much I work. An average show, if it's not filled with sketches or skits, that's 10 hours in one show I put together. Now, if I'm putting sketches and all that other stuff, you're talking 15 hours sometimes into a show, a 1-hour show, prep work and all this other stuff. But if I brought in a steady income, and that kills me too, because I understand why somebody would want to quit, because you can't get your friends to listen to you. You can't get your friends to buy a $20 this or a $5 that. They can't pitch in to help you at all. They don't want to pitch in. They own businesses. You go, hey man, for $5 a month, can you help me out? They won't even put $5 towards you. They'll spend $5 here, $5 on this, $5 on that, but they can't help you. So I get it. I understand why people, especially the people who want to make it big in this industry, would feel discouraged because of the fact that nobody or very few people are supporting him. But you're in a business in its infancy, this internet radio business. It's in its infancy. We're the founding fathers of this genre of radio. And the genre is so vast, there are subgenres inside of internet radio. That's the best thing about it. But if you want to make it big in this business, if you want to get somewhere, you can't go a couple years and just say, it's not worth it, I quit. And you see a lot of that. You got to stick with it. But the ones that are going to stick with it, love it because they love what they're doing. Not because they're trying to be the biggest guy on the block. And not because they get jealous when other people get big. We're supposed to help each other out. We're compadres as founding fathers of internet radio. We got to stick it through. You think the people who founded the United States of America gave up when the times got tough? Only the weak ones did. The ones that wanted to be general, and they couldn't be general because they weren't good enough to be general, so they went scoffed off. They were crying. Woo. I see that. It's the same thing. There's people in this business, they'll just quit because they're not number one. You can't have that soft skin, and you can't worry that you don't have the numbers this week or that week. You got to do it because you love it. Because you're not going to make millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars doing this. You're not going to be supremely popular doing this. There's too many of us. And the market at this moment is small comparatively. Anyways, folks, that's the end of this week's broadcast. I thank you so much for joining me. I want to thank Derek SHELMERDINE for joining me again this weekend. Don't forget that coming up, we've got all kinds of great interviews between the music hour and the first hour and the second hour. We've got so much coming up. Check the website, www.jlebang.com, for all the details on those upcoming interviews, as well as all the shows each and every week. And until the vibrations of my vocal cords reach your ears again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me. This is John LeBang, signing off from the Banger Studio.